I never thought my wedding day would become the day I exposed my fiancé as a cheating, lying, gold-digging fraud in front of 200 guests. But sometimes life forces you to choose between living a lie and standing up for the truth. What I discovered the night before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life still gives me chills. Stay until the end because what I did at the altar will shock you, and what my cat Oliver tried to tell me for months will make you never ignore your pet's instincts again. I'm Rebecca, and this is the story of how I went from blushing bride to badass woman in less than 24 hours, and how my cat saved me from the biggest mistake of my life. In this video I'll tell you exactly what I found in those text messages that shattered my world, how my fiancé had been planning to financially destroy me all along, and the moment I decided to turn my wedding into his public humiliation. But most importantly, I'll show you how my cat Oliver had been trying to warn me about Alexander's true nature for months, and why I should have listened to him from the very beginning. If you've ever ignored your pet's warnings about someone, give this video a like and subscribe because this story might save you from your own disaster. Let me take you back to the beginning of what I thought was a beautiful love story. Alexander and I had been together for 3 years, and for 2 of those years, I genuinely believed I was living in a fairy tale romance. He was everything I thought I wanted in a husband: charming, successful, devastatingly handsome, with the kind of confidence that made heads turn when he walked into a room. Alexander worked as a senior financial advisor at one of Manhattan's most prestigious investment firms. He drove a sleek black BMW, lived in a luxury apartment on the Upper East Side, and always seemed to know exactly the right thing to say in any situation. He was the kind of man who could make a woman feel like she was the only person in the room, even when surrounded by hundreds of people. We met on what started as one of the worst days of my life. I was sitting in a small coffee shop in Midtown, frantically trying to salvage a presentation for my marketing job that had somehow corrupted on my laptop. I was cursing under my breath, near tears, knowing that I had a crucial client meeting in 2 hours and my entire pitch had vanished into digital oblivion. That's when Alexander appeared like something out of a romantic movie. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through to my soul. "Excuse me," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "I couldn't help but notice you're having some technical difficulties. I'm pretty good with computers. Mind if I take a look?" Within 10 minutes he had not only recovered my presentation but had somehow made it run faster than it ever had before. I was so grateful I could have kissed him right there in the middle of the coffee shop. "You're a lifesaver," I told him, feeling a rush of relief and something else I couldn't quite identify. "I don't know how to thank you." He smiled, and it was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. "How about dinner tonight? I know a place that serves the best Italian food in the city, and you look like someone who deserves better than instant coffee and computer crashes." That first date lasted until 3 in the morning. We talked about everything: our careers, our dreams, our families, our fears. Alexander was intelligent, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in everything I had to say. He asked thoughtful questions about my work in marketing, laughed at my jokes, and made me feel like I was the most fascinating woman he'd ever met. By our 3rd date I was completely smitten. By our 10th I was falling in love. Alexander had a way of making every moment feel special and significant. He would surprise me with flowers delivered to my office, take me to exclusive restaurants I'd only read about in magazines, and plan elaborate weekend getaways to charming bed and breakfasts in the countryside. Tell me in the comments, has your pet ever disliked someone you were dating? I wish I had listened to the signs. Within 6 months, Alexander had practically moved into my apartment. Within a year we were talking seriously about marriage and our future together. Within 2 years he proposed with a stunning 2-carat diamond ring at Le Bernardin, the most expensive restaurant in the city, with a violinist playing our song and rose petals scattered across the table. The proposal was everything I had ever dreamed of. Alexander got down on one knee right there in the middle of the restaurant, with dozens of other diners watching and applauding. The ring was absolutely gorgeous. A perfect round diamond in a platinum setting that caught the light and sparkled like captured starlight. "Rebecca," he said, his voice trembling with what I thought was emotion, "you're the love of my life, my soulmate, my everything. I can't imagine spending another day without you as my wife. Will you marry me?" Of course I said yes. How could I not? I was madly in love with this incredible man who seemed to love me just as much in return. But looking back now, I realized there was one major red flag that I consistently ignored, dismissed, and rationalized away. My cat Oliver absolutely, completely, and utterly despised Alexander from the very first moment they met. Oliver was a 5-year-old Siamese cat who had been my constant companion since my senior year of college. I had adopted him from a shelter when he was just 8 weeks old, fluff with enormous blue eyes and But looking back now, I realized there was one major red flag that I consistently ignored, dismissed, and rationalized away. My cat Oliver absolutely, completely, and utterly despised Alexander from the very first moment they met. Oliver was a 5-year-old Siamese cat who had been my constant companion since my senior year of college. I had adopted him from a shelter when he was just 8 weeks old, fluff with enormous blue eyes and a personality bigger than his small body. Over the years, Oliver had become more than just a pet. He was my confidant, my comfort during difficult times, and my most loyal friend. Oliver was naturally social and friendly with everyone who came into our home. He loved meeting new people, would immediately approach visitors with his tail held high and purring loudly, and had never met a stranger he didn't like. My friends joked that Oliver was a better host than I was because he would greet guests at the door and follow them around, demanding attention and pets. But the moment Alexander walked into my apartment for our first at-home date, Oliver's entire demeanor changed dramatically. The cat who had never met a stranger took one look at Alexander and immediately hissed, a sound I had never heard him make before. His back arched, his fur stood on end, and he retreated under my bed, where he remained hidden for the entire evening. "That's so weird," I told Alexander, feeling embarrassed and confused by my normally social cat's behavior. "Oliver is usually incredibly friendly with everyone. He must be having an off day." Alexander laughed it off with that charming smile that made my knees weak. "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Animals can sense when someone's an alpha male. He's probably just intimidated by my presence. It's actually a sign of respect in the animal kingdom." His explanation sounded reasonable at the time, and I wanted to believe it because I was so infatuated with this amazing man who had swept me off my feet. But Oliver's behavior toward Alexander never improved. In fact, it got progressively worse as their relationship continued. Every time Alexander came over to my apartment, Oliver would disappear completely. I would find him hiding in the most unusual places, squeezed into the back of my closet, under the bathroom sink, or even inside the linen cabinet. He would stay hidden until Alexander left, and only then would he emerge, seeming nervous and agitated for hours afterward. When Alexander started staying overnight regularly, Oliver's behavior became even more concerning. He began acting out in ways that were completely unlike his normal personality. He would knock over Alexander's coffee cup every morning without fail. He would scratch Alexander's favorite leather jacket that hung in my closet. He would jump onto Alexander's laptop keyboard while he was working, causing him to lose documents and become frustrated. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that like button and let me know in the comments if you want to hear more stories like this one. The most disturbing incident happened about 6 months into our relationship. I came home from work to find that Oliver had urinated in Alexander's expensive Italian leather shoes, something he had never done before in his entire life. Oliver was perfectly house-trained and had never had an accident in my apartment. Alexander was furious. "That cat has serious behavioral issues, Rebecca," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "This kind of destructive behavior isn't normal. Maybe we should think about finding him a new home where he'll be happier." The suggestion hit me like a physical blow. "Oliver isn't going anywhere," I said firmly. He's been my family for 5 years. He's not just a pet, he's part of who I am. Alexander's expression softened immediately and he pulled me into his arms. Of course, baby. I completely understand. I would never ask you to choose between us. We'll work through this together. Maybe we just need to give him more time to adjust to having me around. But as time went on, I started noticing other strange behaviors from Oliver that I had never seen before. He would position himself physically between Alexander and me whenever we were sitting on the couch together, as if he was trying to protect me from something. He would meow loudly and persistently whenever Alexander was talking on the phone in private, almost like he was trying to interrupt or get my attention. Most unsettling of all, I would sometimes catch Oliver staring at Alexander with an intensity that seemed almost human. His blue eyes would be fixed on Alexander's face with a focus that made me uncomfortable, like he was studying him, trying to figure something out, or seeing something that I couldn't see. "Your cat is seriously creepy," Alexander said one evening after catching Oliver staring at him. "The way he looks at me sometimes, it's like he's plotting something." I laughed it off, but privately I was starting to worry that something was genuinely wrong with Oliver. I made an appointment with our veterinarian, Dr. Martinez, to see if there might be a medical reason for his behavioral changes. Dr. Martinez examined Oliver thoroughly and ran several tests, but everything came back completely normal. "Physically, Oliver is in perfect health," she told me. "Sometimes cats can become stressed by major changes in their environment, like a new person moving into their territory. But his behavior sounds more protective than aggressive. Has this man given you any reason to feel uncomfortable or unsafe?" The question caught me off guard. "No, of course not. Alexander is wonderful. We're getting married next year." Dr. Martinez nodded, but I noticed she looked thoughtful. Cats have incredibly keen instincts about people. They can pick up on subtle cues that humans miss, changes in body language, tone of voice, even chemical signals like pheromones that indicate stress or deception. If Oliver is consistently reacting negatively to this person, it might be worth paying attention to what he's trying to tell you. I left the vet's office feeling more confused than ever. On one hand, I had this amazing relationship with a man I loved deeply and planned to marry. On the other hand, I had a cat who had never been wrong about people before suddenly acting like Alexander was dangerous. I decided to trust my heart over my pet's instincts. Looking back now, that was the biggest mistake I ever made. Subscribe to the channel if you want to know what those messages revealed. Trust me, you won't believe what I found. As our wedding date approached, Alexander became increasingly involved in our financial planning. At first it seemed sweet and responsible, the kind of thing a caring fiancé would naturally want to discuss. "We should start thinking about combining our finances," he said one evening about 6 months before our wedding.